Here it is. Welcome back, everybody, to another LEGO superhero set review. Today, I have the next big Marvel set, which is the XMansion. Now, this bad boy is going to have 3,093 pieces. Its rumored price point is supposed to be $330. I'll have a link down in the description to lego.com so you can double check the pricing with that. It's affiliated and helps with the channel if you choose to buy the set. It's supposed to be launching, I believe, November 1st of 2024. Again, that's up in the air. I'm reviewing this a few weeks ahead of launch. I don't have all the details, unfortunately. But I am a giant X-Men fan, and so the fact that we're finally getting Xavier's Institute, well, this is a real treat for me. I'm a little disappointed with the design that LEGO went for. From what I can tell, this is very much the design from the revitalized X-Men 97 show on Disney Plus that came out earlier this year. And that makes sense because it'll also tie in with the X-Jet that also came out. That's very overpriced though. And I don't know. I don't know if that was the right decision. You know, I personally would have liked to see the Hatley Castle version. That's what we see in the original X-Men trilogy be used. That's what you see in Days of Future Past. Like, that would have been a really cool castle aesthetic. I think this looks good. You know, obviously there's more color in this variation. But I know what you're thinking in the comments below. It looks like the LEGO Natural History Museum just recolored. And I think that's probably the biggest, kind of issue. If the Natural History Museum didn't exist as a LEGO modular building, then this probably would have been a perfectly fine choice. Keep in mind, this is a modular building. There is modular connection points on the side, so you could put the two side by side and see what that looks like. Now, from what I can also tell, it's also the same size as the Natural History Museum modular set. It's 1.5, green size base plate, 32 by 32 studs. If you want to get super technical, it's 32 by 48 studs. Now, on the back side, you will notice that there is a full interior within the Institute. Of course, there are rooms that honestly was kind of geeking me out. We have Logan's little bedroom here. We have the training room. We have Cerebro. That's awesome. It looks to be like maybe Professor X's office or maybe just a library room. We'll see in the in-depth here shortly. In terms of minifigures, well, of course, you got to have the full X-Men lineup. So plenty to go around. Wolverine's here, Professor X, Storm, Cyclops, Rogue, Iceman. It's funny to see Gambit after, Deadpool and Wolverine had just came out in theaters. There's also Bishop as well as Magneto. So quite the lineup of superheroes within this. They're obviously also suiting up with their comic book accurate type of designs here. Not from, again, what you see in the movies. That's fine with me. I think their suits are super iconic, whether it's in the super poppy colors or not. Lastly, it's just worth noting that, this is the next modular superhero building. Last year we got Avengers Tower. Prior to that, we've gotten the Sanctum Sanctorum, and now we have the XMansion to bundle them all up together. So I will be showing all three of those sets together here shortly. There's so much to go through within the XMansion. I do want to thank LEGO for sending this set over for review. And finally, let's go into the in-depth and see all these freaking cool details, man. So first up, there is 3 separate instruction booklets in this set, so you can build with other people, which is nice to see. Inside the first instruction booklet, of course, there's a nice introduction about the XMansion, lots of details, different concept art, always cool to see. And then for other pieces that are outside of the normal bags, we have 3 16 by 32 base plates, a little hose there, as well as 1 large 8 by 16 plate. Now brace yourself for this next part. There is 56 stickers in this set. I'm going to go cry in the corner now. In all seriousness, the graphic designer did an absolute fantastic job with all the different details here, but seriously, this is far too many stickers. It is worth noting that 8 of them are extra stickers to add to the Sentinel if you want to add damage, or to the ground, so it's not as bad, I guess. Now, I have a lot of thoughts on the XMansion, both good and bad, but before we get to that, let's talk about the full minifigure lineup, starting off with Rogue. So this figure is from the X-Jet, from what I can tell, the set that came out earlier this year. It is the exact same version. I don't see any new differences here. Same goes with the next figure, Wolverine, and as you can see, of course, he comes with his claws. He has his kind of enlarged comic book accurate mask, and then you can switch him out with a hair piece that is included in this set as well. Dual-sided face. Now Logan/Wolverine also has his motorcycle here in dark blue, so that's a nice addition if you want to add that to the battle scene, or just, having him driving off. Next up, we have Jean Grey, and as you can see, she comes with some transparent pieces, both in clear as well as pink to kind of emphasize her powers. The figure looks really good, comic book accurate as you would expect. Dual-sided face, and I will say the face is a little on the faint side, like the printing isn't quite coming through there. And of course, you can't have Jean Grey without Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, so here he is, and I love the parts usage that LEGO's utilizing, both a spring-loaded missile as well as the lollipop piece to make it look like Cyclops is utilizing his powers. Now, this figure is somewhat new. He has leg printing comparative to the one that comes from the X-Jet, so that's nice to see. Next, we have a brand new X-Men for the first time in LEGO minifigure form, which is Iceman, and I think LEGO did a fantastic job executing this figure. While it's fairly simple, it still looks really well done. No complaints here. Following that, we have Storm, which looks absolutely epic with these lightning bolts. You can see that she has this wraparound cape piece, which isn't the first time we've seen this. In the CMF version of Storm, she had something like this. However, it didn't have the yellow printing. Now, the torso, from what I can tell, is being reutilized from that CMF version of Storm, so that's not new, but the head is. Next, we have Bishop, which I think looks fantastic. I love the details here, especially on his face. His blaster, while brick built, looks really cool as well, and great double-sided face. Oh, he's about to make a name for himself. Okay. Next up, we have Gambit here, and this is the perfect timing for this character, obviously coming off the heels of Wolverine and Deadpool. This is an awesome figure. I like what LEGO's done here with his cards, how it's utilizing that kind of magical piece. The figure itself looks absolutely fantastic. Of course, he has a staff as well. The head printing, surprisingly, is very well done, even though it's white on black. I am very impressed with this figure, and definitely probably my favorite out of all of them. And then, of course, we have Charles Xavier, aka Professor X, in his iconic hovering yellow chair. And the figure is fairly simple, nothing to really note about here. He has the Lex Luthor face. Overall, looks like Professor X. You really can't complain. The tie also looks really cool with this specialty print here. And of course, lastly, Charles's best friend slash enemy, Magneto. So this version has a molded cape, so it's not a normal fabric cape, and I think that looks pretty good. He has this nice helmet, the white hair is also included, and he has a dual-sided face. Overall, this is not my favorite version of Magneto, but he does look pretty good and very comic book accurate. Finally, we don't have a minifigure per se, instead a quote-unquote buildable big fig is maybe what you could consider this. Of course, I'm talking about the Sentinel, the iconic mutant hunters, and boy does this one look so freaking cool in the iconic color scheme of that pink and purple. It actually looks pretty intimidating, and the build itself is very well done. Lots of ball joints all over the place, so you can basically pose the Sentinel however you want. That 3x3 dome headpiece is all printed. Unfortunately, his inner core of his chest piece there is not printed. That's just a sticker. As for his little capture device utilizing that cable there, well, it's actually a very simple technique. It's literally just utilizing friction from that Technic piece to hold a minifigure in, and surprisingly, there's enough friction here to grasp on to pretty much anything you put in there. So I am very impressed. As for the leg joints here, there's also a lot of ball joints. It's not as posable as the arms are, but still enough where you'll be satisfied, at least in my opinion. It's also worth noting that I really like this parts usage of I believe it's a Mario piece that's being utilized on the feet there, and you can get some fairly fun poses with the Sentinel. Now on the backside, you'll notice this little Technic piece here. That is to include this transparent rod piece that will allow you to add a minifigure attacking the Sentinel, which I think is a great display function, so you can get some different actions here. Of course, I'm going to have Wolverine coming after his head. Very iconic from both the TV shows of the movie and the comic books of how he slices off the Sentinel head, which is extremely satisfying that you can just pull it right off that big fig. Very, very awesome. Finally, you'll notice there's some Technic pieces here on the bottom of the Sentinel's feet. That is so you can attach it right here on the very left side of the XMansion so he doesn't come falling off while you're moving the set around. Speaking of which, let's finally get into the XMansion, what you're really buying here. And I gotta say, I'm a bit disappointed. This is one of those rare instances where the box of this set really made it seem like it was a lot larger than it actually is. There's a lot of room there on the front kind of sidewalk as well as the landscape, which really cut short on the actual building. There's very little depth to it, and that is my biggest complaint with this set, and you'll see that as we go through all the different rooms. Now, just like sets like the Avengers Tower and Sanctum Sanctorum, you'll find these Technic pieces throughout the exterior of the X-Mansion. That's to utilize all these transparent pole pieces that'll stick in and add effects so it looks like your superheroes are flying around, or maybe they're exploding, or whatever you want them to do. It's very fun and definitely adds a really neat effect to the set. Now, I will say, when you remove all the characters from the X-Mansion, what you're left with is a pretty bland set, in my opinion. You need the figures and the Sentinel to really add all the fun and action here. Now, it's very clear in the build that LEGO wants you to have this huge battle happening in the front yard of the X-Mansion. There's broken down areas of the actual mansion itself coming apart. You know, there's the actual sidewalk falling apart from Iceman, for example, you know, freezing up. I like those details, but it really shows that maybe LEGO's acknowledging they know they have a kind of bland building and you need that to add fun to the set. But thankfully there is this one feature where you can explode the front tower here, the top of the building, which I thought was very cool and is quite a surprise. It is very, very fun to do. With the action of the front yard out of the way, let's now turn our attention to the actual building of the X-Mansion. First off, it splits up into 3 different sections. It sticks together utilizing just 2 Technic pieces here, and it surprisingly works, though can be a little flimsy sometimes, but enough to keep the whole building together even while you're transporting across your room. And as you would expect, this is a fully modular building, so you can split it all up into 5 different rooms, technically 6, but I'll explain why it's 5 here in a minute. And you can see that they're fairly small. Again, that's my biggest complaint with this set, is there's not enough room inside the actual X-Mansion. Now we're going to take this one section at a time, starting with the left side. As you can see, the facade is falling apart from the Sentinel on the exterior, which looks cool. It's adding some action. You can see there's this little pop-up turrets that's very iconic to both the TV show and I believe it pops up in the movie as well. We have this little tree here. You can see it's fairly basic in terms of the front yard. And now turning our attention to the side hallway that opens up into the danger room. Now off to the sides here, we have some sticker usage on a 4x4 tile, for example, a fun TV image of the Sentinels returning. Then we have a newspaper saying mutant registration. That's cool. Nice Easter egg as well. On the back side of the building, you can see there's a little basketball hoop with a little miniature basketball as well. A little cardboard box that says Trask on it. Nice Easter egg as well. And then we have the actual danger room. Now, I've got to say this is hard to get your hands in, and LEGO knows that, so they've added a functionality to make it easier to get your hands in, and that's basically taking the walls apart. Each section like this one has a different, we'll call it course, training course. Some are missiles, some are rockets. Then we have these blasters here that move off to the side. We have some fireballs on the wall. There's, a red light, green light of when the action is happening inside the danger room. As for the second level here in the hallway, you can see there's a nice Easter egg of the chessboard that Charles and Magneto are kind of going against on, which I think is a fun nod to the movies. Then we have this control panel here controlling the actual danger room, looking out through a window there, and this is the second level of the danger room. So that's what I meant by 5 rooms, is that really one of the rooms is combined with the other. And you can see this section has lasers, some saws, and so definitely a lot of different obstacles for the X-Men to train with. So overall, I really like this concept. I like how you can pull out the different sections and, basically plug in whatever you want or rearrange it. It's just a little difficult to get your hands in there. I wish this space was bigger. As you can see, you can only fit like 1 or 2 minifigures controlling the actual control panel for the danger room. And then finally, we have the roof on top of this section, which is fairly simple but well designed. But now we move on to the midsection of the building, which is definitely highlighted by this established 1963, which is a nice nod to the original X-Men comic. Up at the front here, we have some studs for minifigures, a nice little walkway leading into 2 different doors, and then that leads into the grand entrance. And I say grand, but it's pretty small here, especially when you compare to something like the Sanctum Sanctorum, which has that giant staircase when you go inside. Here, it's just a carpet of the X logo, which looks cool. We have a little elevator here, 2 little cushion seats, and we have a little busk off to the side, some statue on the other, and we have some fun Easter eggs like, class this way, danger room that way. We have Charles and Magneto right here. We have the original X-Men here, a picture of that. And then we have a back door that leads out to the, maybe like an alleyway, which wouldn't exactly make sense for the X-Mansion because that has a backyard, but
Nonetheless, we have some nice sticker usage here, some nice details, and a leaky pipe as well. Moving on to the second floor now, this is what I would consider a lab. It even says so on a sticker here. Then we have another section of a facade of an elevator. It's not actually functioning. And this room is combining a couple different things. We have a little x-ray machine, and when you lift up the bed, you can see an x-ray of Logan's arm of his adamantium, which I think is cool. Then we have a computer off to the left with some tapes. And then finally, we have Cerebro also in this lab, which I guess could make sense, but it's not very big. It's just this holographic screen and the helmet. That's it. No, spherical room or anything like that. And I get it. That's from the movies. The comic book kind of states Cerebro as something that Charles has at his desk. That's all right. But man, I wish we had a dedicated room for Cerebro. That would have been really cool to see. And now we have the final right section of the mansion. Again, 2 floors here. The facade is fairly similar as, of course, the left side, except it's a little bit more put together. We have, the fire hydrant and light post kind of coming apart from Iceman per se. We have a little sign here that says Xavier School for the Gifted Youngsters, which I enjoy seeing. And then on the back side, it's worth noting there is indeed a dumpster. We also have some sticker details as well. I love this Nightcrawler poster. That's really funny to see. And then as for that dumpster, first off, there's a little toad there, probably a little winky nod. And then we have some accessories like a coin, a sword, and a hat, which I obviously think is for Logan, but you could argue and say that it could be utilized for Magneto as well. Both characters are seen utilizing hats like this. As for the interior for the bottom floor, first off, walking through the hallway, we have this little bookshelf here with some fun Easter eggs on the wall. And then that leads into, I would call this a classroom. Barely. It only has 2 seats. That's it for a classroom. Anyhow, we have a little globe here in the corner. We have some, again, fun Easter egg art like Logan kind of messing around on this sign. And then we have a chalkboard of Hank on the screen here that also has an X-Men First Class Easter egg there teaching the class. And then you can push this to the right and really train for the Sentinels, basically. Now, making our way up to the next floor, we basically have a hallway here extending that lab from the midsection. And as you can see, there's some spilled coffee on the floor. There's a screensaver that says on the computer a cure. So maybe that's a reference to X3 potentially. And then leading into the bedroom here, first off on the floor, you'll find a little comic book version of the X-Men. That's cool to see. Then we have a dresser with Gubble Bubble. We have a little sword here on the top. And then we have a little portrait of Scott and Jean on the bed, so maybe that's Cyclops' bed, question mark. And then we have a little Easter egg of Logan on a calendar. And again, you could put Cyclops and Logan in here, or you could switch it up with other X-Men. It's really up to you what you want to do with the bedroom. Again, it's just unfortunate there's only 1 bedroom in this entire mansion. Now, again, in terms of durability, as you can see, those Technic axles that are holding the 2 sections together to that mid section is working pretty well. You just have to be careful about where exactly you're grabbing it. If you grab the upper levels, the whole thing will crumble on you. So make sure you're grabbing from the base plates, not from the sides like I just was. That's a bad idea. And again, this hopefully will give you guys an idea of just how thin the actual mansion is. Like only half of the base plate from the side is being taken up, which is just disappointing. And finally, let's take a look at the XMansion alongside some other sets. So first off, bringing in some normal modular Lego buildings, the bookshop on the left and the Parisian restaurant on the right. As you can see, I would say the XMansion doesn't exactly blend very well. The facade is okay on the XMansion, but comparative to these sets, it's fairly bland. But the bigger issue is the fact that the whole mansion is pushed so far back on the base plate that when you connect other modulars in, it doesn't exactly look good. It looks super out of place. I've got to say, if you're into modular buildings, this one is a bit of a disappointment. And when you compare to sets like the Avengers Tower and, say, the Sanctum Sanctorum, which blend extremely well with the normal Lego modular buildings, well, this is a bit of a different case. Lego definitely has made it so it blends very well with these. It doesn't look nearly as bad when you're putting it in between Avengers Tower and the Sanctum Sanctorum, as you can see here. Specifically Avengers Tower because of how that shape is. It doesn't really matter how far back the XMansion is off the sidewalk. Now, I've got to take a second here and just geek out. This looks so freaking cool, man. Having all the Marvel superheroes all fighting alongside each other. Like, this is awesome. All these different battles happening together. Like, this is a nerd's dream right here, and I am so for it. Now, coming back to the reality of how this is going to hurt your wallet, $330 is a lot of money for the XMansion. And with my complaints about how small the actual set is, specifically just how little depth there is to the set, especially when you compare it to these others like the Avengers Tower and Sanctum Sanctorum, and then couple that with the fact that I'm a giant X-Men fan and had such high hopes for the XMansion, and I just don't feel like LEGO quite delivered for this one.
So I'd be lying to you guys if I didn't say that I'm a little mixed on this one. It's not a perfect set, and it has some frankly pretty big issues, at least to me personally. This is going to vary person by person, but I'm just going to give my opinion here, like I always do in my reviews. I was a giant fan of the films growing up. Before the MCU existed, the original X-Men trilogy was quite fantastic. The third one, not so much, but you know what I'm talking about. Days of Future Past, First Class, like that. I love all the films, and it's unfortunate that the LEGO team went to the comic book / X-Men 97 route with this set, because I frankly think the building of the XMansion is quite boring. Take away all the colorful, beautiful looking superheroes in the Sentinel, and you're left with a fairly boring looking building that you're going to be paying over $300 for. Now inside, of course, there's plenty of fun Easter eggs, lots of rooms to explore, but a lot of it does heavily rely on sticker usage to get the point across. Only the Danger Room is a real standout. One of the biggest downsides for me is how little the classroom is. I really wish there was more depth to this building, or if it was taller, or maybe it was 2 full green base plates big like the Botanical Garden that I just reviewed. Just something about this package doesn't quite work for me. I think it really just comes down to the aesthetic of the building. It is so accurate to what we see in X-Men 97 and fairly accurate to what we see in the comic books of what the X-Mansion looks like. But as a LEGO set, it's pretty plain. And if they had gone with like the Hatley Castle, what we see in the X-Men films, that kind of design, that castle aesthetic with vines growing, you could have done the grays mixed with maybe some dark tan and all that jazz. You could have done some really cool like techniques that LEGO fans would have really appreciated. It would have looked so different amongst all the other modular buildings. It would have looked completely different amongst the LEGO superhero modular buildings like the Avengers Tower, the Daily Bugle, and of course Sanctum Sanctorum. It would have been super different alongside those. But of course this does look fairly similar to the Natural History Museum, but just kind of color swapped. With that said, is it a good value? Yes, in terms of LEGO superhero sets, you look at the Avengers Tower, it's about 5,000 so pieces, $500. Granted, you're getting more minifigures, but you're also paying a higher price for that set. This is 3,000-ish pieces. You're getting a good amount of figures, some of which are exclusive to this set. Couple that with the fact that it's $330, it's a little pushy. Personally, this should be maximum $300, so I don't know if there's any gift with purchases tied with this set. Of course, there'll be promotions in November of 2024 for Black Friday. So, definitely wait until those happen before you consider picking this up. I don't think this is a day one purchase. At least I wouldn't be picking this up day one. I think it's a good set. It's just not exactly what I want. And I also want to make the commentary that, yes, the Daily Bugle exists. That's nothing but a giant gray skyscraper. But you also have to admit that's completely different, not only from the other LEGO superhero modular sets, but from any other LEGO modular building that's come thus far. This, on the other hand, it's not doing it for me. But I really just think LEGO should have gone down the film route, and I think that would have been more appealing to more fans like myself. This just isn't what I would personally want. Now, I still enjoy it because obviously it's still the XMansion. It's just a different facade. It's a little bit smaller than I was hoping for. You still have plenty of the characters that you'd like to see here. So if you can get this for $300 or less and get some type of promotion going on, whether that's double VIP points or something like that, yeah, I think this is worth picking up at some point. It looks okay next to the other Marvel, superhero buildings. I'd like to see DC superhero modular buildings at some point. Wayne Manor comes to mind. They've only done the Shadow Box was the last kind of big Batman set. Love to see a DC and Marvel incorporation. Maybe that's just me. In terms of what the next LEGO superheroes modular style big set building could be, I'd love to see the Malibu Mansion. Let's throw back to original Iron Man 2, and even Iron Man 3. I think that would be a really cool set. Maybe that's just me. I don't know if that would work as a modular building, but it certainly would be a fantastic set if you do it right. You could definitely charge over $300 for that one, and I would buy that day one. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you like the XMansion? Do you like the route that they went down, going, comic book / X-Men 97 show design aesthetic? Do you wish they had done, like I think they should have done, the film version of the XMansion? And it's not even from the films. It's also in X-Men Evolution. It's also in Wolverine and the X-Men. It's in other TV shows. It's not just the films, so I'll also point that out. Let me know down in the comments below. I do want to thank LEGO for sending this set over for review. Hope you guys have a great, wonderful day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.